Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
The scroll on my mouse advances the slides and I keep hitting it.
No, that's perfect. I was just gonna say good morning, everyone, and why don't we go ahead and get started? You can continue putting in your name, agency, and LHD into the chat while we do some introductions. Next slide. So we are part of the NPI SLAQ team. NPI, for those of you who don't know, is the Nutrition Policy Institute, and we're at the University of California Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. We're the subcontract for CalFresh Healthy Living Evaluation with the California Department of Public Health. And I am Janice Kao, and I'm the overall SLAQ lead, and then also the retail SLAQ lead. We also have Christina Becker, who's our ECE SLAQ lead, our SLAQ validity testing project manager, and she's also the master of all things related to Survey 123. You may also recognize our names from working on PAIRS reporting as well. And I'd like to welcome Kayla Plank, the newest member of our SLAQ team. She is our amazing SLAQ training and TA lead. And I just want to invite our CDPH training team members to go ahead and introduce themselves as well.
Hi, this is Nikendra Abner with California Department of Public Health, and I work with the CalFresh Healthy Living statewide training team.
Hi, and I'm Annette DePiro, also with CalFresh Healthy Living statewide training.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Darlene Branson with statewide training with CDPH. And again, just want to say thank you to the Janice, Christina, and Kayla with doing this training today. So thank you.
Thank you guys for being here and for supporting. I also just want to quickly thank Erica Eilenberg. I'm not sure if she's on yet, but thank you so much for bringing this to our attention that this is needed, and we were happy to pull this together. I'm thinking it'll be a little bit informal today. I want to make sure we just have plenty of time for questions and to address any, concerns or data collection, problem solving, troubleshooting that you want to bring up. And we're also happy to arrange other calls with your individual LHDs to cover those kinds of things as well. So today we're going to go through just what and where are all of the current retail SLAQ materials. We'll go through the existing data collection protocol, the different options for conducting the retail SLAQ, some of our planned updates for FFY23, which is just around the corner, and we have an option to pilot that version instead of the current version if you're interested. And then we have just some announcements about upcoming office hours and a reminder to start thinking about completing those LHD activity checklists, which I'll cover in the data collection protocol section as well. And then finally, we'll have some open Q&A time. And we'll leave some time at the end of each of these sections to address any questions. I think we are a relatively small group today, so you could either unmute yourself when it's question time, or you can chat it in to the Zoom chat when you think of it. And Annette has graciously offered to help us keep track of those. This is being recorded and we'll post it on our website when it's ready, and maybe we'll do like a written Q&A document as well. Okay. I don't think I have any other housekeeping notes. Please chime in, Kayla or Christina, if I'm missing anything, but otherwise take it away, Kayla.
Great. So the first thing we want to just do is go over an overview of our materials. So I'm going to share my screen. First, I wanted to go, I'm just going to throw a link into the chat so that you guys can follow along with me. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So this is the main landing page for all things related to site level assessment questionnaires. So that includes both the learn setting and also the retail SLAQs. So this is just the home page. And if you go down, you have the questionnaires page where you can find the online SLAQ submission for retail, which is right here for FY 2022. And this gets changed as we go into the upcoming years. So this will be open until we close it, and then we'll start the next one. So this is where you would enter all your data that you collect. And then we also have the LHD activity checklist submission right here as well. So that's what that looks like. And this page is also great because we have access to the folder where we have all the paper versions of everything. So we've got this printable questionnaires and other resources. So if you just click on this link, you will head over to the SharePoint page where we've got all the printable resources you might need for conducting SLAQs. So we've got a folder just for retail. And within that folder, we've got several different materials. So we've got the retail SLAQ itself. So this is something you can print out and take with you when you go to stores to collect data. So you've got the Word document there. And then we also have the data collection protocol. And this is, I'm going to, I guess, copy this link, but this is the step-by-step guide for how to complete the SLAQ. And Janice is going to be going over this in more detail later. So I'm gonna just put this in here. It's a very long link, I apologize. Because you might want to use it to follow along in a little bit. And then we also have interview question guides. So for when you're conducting your store owner manager interviews, you can print this out and use this. And we also have this in the retail SLAQ itself. And then we also have a price worksheet. So this price worksheet is just to help make it easier for you to collect the prices that we ask about in the SLAQ. So this is also dispersed throughout the printed SLAQ. But if this is easier and more straightforward to use, you have this resource as well. And then we also have definitions and explanations. So this PDF goes over all the definitions that are in the SLAQ. Sorry, it's so small. This is also in the printed SLAQ as well as in Survey 123. So it's helpful to look at this before you do data collection to make sure you're familiar with all the terms that are going to be used and asked about in the SLAQ itself. And we finally have a scoring and explanation guide. So this breaks down the points for each question in the SLAQ, as well as shows you which questions are related to CX3. So those are the general resources that we have that are printable and might help with your data collection. And then if we go back to the SLAQ website, we also have a SLAQ training page. So the SLAQ training page has past trainings and upcoming training information for all the different SLAQs. So once this training is over, it'll be posted there. And then we also have the SLAQ FAQs. So we have it broken down by the different types of settings, and we have one just for retail SLAQs. And so these are common questions about how to administer the SLAQ, and you can just click on them and kind of read our response and how we would suggest addressing these issues. And lastly, we have our resources page. So the resources page is for all the different SLAQs, but it gives some helpful information. We've got the SLAQ one pager, which can be helpful for folks and kind of explaining what we're doing. And then we also have, we've just recently linked to the Promising Practices Exchange on Assessments. So this was the PPE training that CDSS ran, and might help you kind of learn a little bit more about the value of assessment and how to use some of the resources around assessment. And lastly, we've got the action planning tool. So after you complete the SLAQ, you're going to meet with your partners and start figuring out what you want to do as your intervention. And this SLAQ action planning tool can be really helpful for that. So it's a step-by-step guide on how to create objectives, and it has a little bit more information about just a way to kind of break everything down. So I think those are the main things we wanted to show you today. But yes, this page has a lot of information that's helpful. It also has, contact us. Yeah, I think those are the main things I wanted to share.
Thanks, Kayla. I was just going to point out too, on the FAQs page, there's also kind of a general SLAQ section, and that there could be some helpful Q&A in there as well.
Okay, great.
Okay, let me go ahead and pull up the data collection protocol. And if any of you had a chance to navigate to the website and to the SharePoint folder to pull it up, that might be helpful too, in case you want to take your own notes. Just let you all have a little time to pull that up if you want. Can everyone see my Word document?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see any of you any longer, so I'll just rely on voice cues now. So I think
Oh, wait, were we gonna pause for questions, or did we already do that?
we did not. Good point.
Yeah, so if anybody has questions about what resources are available, now is the time to ask. You can unmute yourself, or you can type your question into the chat, and we'll just wait a beat before we get into the protocol.
Oh, I do have a question that came directly to me. So there isn't an FY22 version of this, of the SLAQ, of the retail SLAQ, I should say. The last time we made changes was after the pilot year, which was FY20. And what happened with that year, I'm sure you all remember. We were able to finish doing all of our testing for all of the Learn SLAQs, because that happened in fall of 2019, so the beginning of fiscal year 20, but we were in the middle of testing for the retail SLAQ. And so we made some changes to the retail SLAQ for at the beginning of FY21, and that's the current version that you should all have right now. And Christina will go into this a little bit more later. We're testing out some of those changes that we made and some other revisions to continue to reduce the time burden that it takes, because we realize it's long, and especially for larger stores, the SLAQ can take a long time to conduct. And so that's what we're getting ready for this next fiscal year, so starting FY23. Any other questions about the different years? I know that's kind of confusing. Okay, well, I'll try to keep an eye on my chat window, but also feel free to just unmute yourself and interrupt me. Okay, so I thought we could just take some time to go through the retail SLAQ data collection protocol. And I think one of the most important things to note is that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I know a lot of different LHDs do this in different ways. And when we created this, we relied on our own healthy retail experience from even before we joined the CalFresh Healthy Living evaluation team. There are a couple of different healthy retail projects that I've worked on. So this data collection protocol is very much a product of my own experience, but I think, you can adapt this to fit what works best for your own data collection team and your stores that you're working with. And then I think the other really key thing to note about retail SLAQ data collection is that the stores are already recruited before you conduct the SLAQ. So this isn't like an assessment that you would use to figure out whether or not to ask the store to participate in your healthy retail program. Okay. So this first part covers scheduling. And I think, step one, probably pretty obvious, but it's to talk to your main store contact and just communicate with them about how the CalFresh Healthy Living project has an annual assessment requirement. And we have a couple of talking points below here in the gray box that you can use as a jumping off point for how to communicate, what the SLAQ is for and why you need to do it. Some other ideas that we've heard from LHDs is that you could write this into your MOU, your memorandum of understanding, so that the information about the SLAQ is up front and they know that this is something that's required each year. And then if you are working on some other evaluation efforts for your own local evaluation, like other surveys or customer interviews, then of course this would be, you can talk about all of these different assessments all at that same time. In terms of kind of logistics of when to conduct the SLAQs, the observation portion of the SLAQs, I like to ask when, produce deliveries occur and other kind of major stocking dates, because a lot of times those happen on certain days of the week. So you do want to try to get to the store on a date when the store is fully stocked. And then the interview portion of the SLAQ, which is really meant for the store manager or owner, you can complete those on the same day that you do the observations, or you can just schedule those separately, and those could be done by phone or however, the owner or manager wants to do it. Sometimes I've had luck doing it just kind of in between customers if the manager happens to be the one manning the cash register that day, and other times they prefer like a separate phone interview. So just, I think, flexibility and whatever works for both you and the your store manager. Here's some other considerations about conducting the interview. So sometimes we have members of our team who are collecting the data related to store observations, but maybe they aren't comfortable enough conducting the interview, or maybe you need to conduct the interview in a different language. So it's fine to, split up the SLAQ in that way amongst your different team members. And then finally, I just added some, space here for you to jot down the agreed upon observation time, who's the person who's going to be conducting the observation, and then also interview time and interviewer if those are separate. So I'll let you guys look at the talking points on your own time, but it doesn't need to be repeated verbatim. It's just kind of a jumping off point for you all. And we added that because of a helpful suggestion from one of you all. So definitely let us know if you have other great ideas like this, and we can figure out how to add it to existing materials or create a separate material for you. I'm just laughing because we have this little call out box. This is when we decided not to have a whole separate help email. And so we realized people might recognize it from asking pairs questions. But if you haven't figured it out by now, it's Christina, Kayla, and Evan that answer the Evaluate SnapEd emails. Okay, so preparing for observations. So of course, you should download all the latest files. Those are the ones that Kayla just showed you, and they haven't changed since FY21. We are planning some slight changes for FY23, which I mentioned before, and Christina will get into in a little bit. Before you go to the store to start doing your observations, you should review the content on the SLAQ and all the different materials, look at the definitions and explanations. Make sure you know how to categorize healthy versus unhealthy whenever that comes up, what the difference is between an end cap, freestanding display, etc. And then just allow time to get your questions answered and make sure that you know all the material before you walk into the store to do the observations. I think it also makes the data collection faster if you know the store pretty well. So if you do have a chance to visit the store before doing observations, just so you know where all the products are and where the main placement, promotion, signage, and all of those things are, that will make conducting the SLAQs faster. Some people even will pre-fill the SLAQs if they went to the store recently and already know the information. So that's an option too. And then that way, when you get there, you can kind of just double check that that's still accurate on your observation day. If you are doing this on paper, then print all the materials that you'll need. And then, and there you can decide if you want to, if you also want that separate price worksheet, or what other additional materials you might want in addition to just the paper SLAQ. Okay, and then here's just a note on where you can find your site ID. I think this list is probably kind of out of date by now. Christina, do you know if we have a newer one of this, or would we recommend that they just look it up based on their pairs report?
Yeah, I think we actually might update the protocols to find the site IDs in pairs. And I can send out an email to the folks who came today, information on how to do that in pairs. Or I can show you guys in pairs today too. I can just share my screen for that.
Okay, and then here's a little table of the different ways to complete the SLAQ. Christina will actually go over this in a little bit, so I'm just going to skip down to the next page. Here is kind of like a checklist format of the different things that you might need when it's the day to go conduct your observations. Feel free to add to this. Once you download this document, you can edit it however you want. I think I will actually jump here over to the LHD activity checklist, because that is something that I think, because it's not done at the same time as the SLAQ necessarily, people sometimes forget about it. So I'll take this opportunity to just discuss it a little bit. So this is different from the SLAQ in that this is not an observation of the store itself. This is more like a checklist of just the items that that you as the LHD or your subcontractor are working with the store on. So they can be things that are in progress. It doesn't have to be like a PSE change that's already adopted in order to check it off. You can put in things that you're planning, that you just started having conversations about. It's to give us a sense of what the LHD activities are for the store, and it's kind of the direction that you're headed in with your healthy retail intervention. And they're similar to the SLAQ, there's a paper version, but in order to submit it, you have to data enter it into a Survey 123 link. So you could also just do it directly into Survey 123 if it's the end of the fiscal year and you're ready to do it all at once. This is due at the end of the fiscal year. I probably should have started with that. So you might be doing your SLAQ data collection at a different point in time in the fiscal year. And once all of your, your interventions are completed for the fiscal year, you can go ahead and complete the LHD activity checklist. But I know, these timelines are not necessarily that cut and dry. So we just use, I think, like a week or two after the end of the fiscal year as our deadline for the activity checklist submission. Yeah, so I think that's all that I wanted to cover here in the data collection protocol. Does anybody have any questions or want me to go up to another section? Just checking the chat window. I don't see anything there. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and stop sharing this. Christina, did you want me to share the slides for you, or do you want to handle that yourself?
I'm happy to share the slides. Thank you. First, I'm just going to do a quick little tutorial on how to find the site ID. Hopefully y'all can see, I'm in pairs right now. I'm in a new PSE. I'm about to enter a new PSE activity. And so if I wanted to find the PSE ID, I would, or the set ID, I would just type in the store name. I think there's SLAQ Market. So I've been to SLAQ Market in Oakland before. If you hover over the name of the store, make sure to check the address to make sure it's the right location. The site ID is found over here on the right when you look up the name. So that's how you can find a site ID pretty easily if it's not on that list that's located in the protocol. And now I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint in a moment. Okay, hopefully y'all can see this. So I'm going to quickly go over some options for conducting the retail SLAQ. The main three that we recommend are using the web link, which is posted on our website, and I have it here in the presentation. You can use the Survey 123 Field app that you can download to your mobile device, tablet or phone. And then you can just print out the questionnaire and have it with you at the store to complete. There are some pros and cons for each option. Using the web link, you would just navigate to your on your phone or tablet to our SLAQ website, click on the survey link, some of the pros of doing that is you don't need to prepare very much ahead of time. You don't need to download anything. And also when you use the web link, the data entry happens simultaneously as you're collecting the data. Cons is that you need an internet connection or data. So it does, when you open the browser on your phone, you'll need to be able to have access through your internet plan on your phone or tablet or data. It's a little harder to take notes because there aren't very many places to comment on. Maybe you want to work on a specific thing in the store, you'll have to write that down somewhere else. And then you have to complete it all at once. You won't, it's not easy to get back to. If there's a chance that it'll erase the data that you've inputted if you don't submit it while all in one go. The Survey 123 Field app, you can download that from the App Store if you have an Apple product, or Google Play if you have an Android product. And again, the nice thing about using the Field app is that there's no extra data entry step. It happens as you are entering, answering the questions at the store in the app. And for the Field app, you'll have to also, if you don't have an internet connection at the store, you'll have to download the actual SLAQ ahead of time. So you have the option to put that in the app. And you can, as I said, you can complete it offline without internet. The web app or the Field app saves a draft as you're entering the information into the questionnaire. And I think you can also, once you submit, I think it also saves a copy of your responses so you can refer back to it later. The cons is that it takes a little bit more prep ahead of time because you have to download the app and you have to also download the retail SLAQ questionnaire. And again, it's harder to take notes because there's not very many places within the survey where you can write things down. So I recommend bringing just a notepad to write any other items that you aren't able to record in the SLAQ. And the last option is just bringing a paper copy. And this is probably the most flexible option because you have the ability to write notes in the margins. You don't need internet access and you don't need to download anything ahead of time. And if you are going to a store and planning on having multiple people complete the SLAQ, then it's easier to share the paper between the two of you. The downside is that there is an extra data entry step, so we have to take the responses that you written in paper and then submit it in the Survey 123 link online. Okay. So I have a quick question for the audience. I'm going to start a poll, and that is, how have you completed the retail SLAQ? Because we're really curious. It's going to be mark all that apply, and we'll give about a minute for folks to complete. And if you see something that is not listed, or if there's something on here that's not listed, a different way that you complete the SLAQ, please write it in the chat. I'll end it in a few more seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll. Okay, so looks like most of you do the printed method, and a few of you use the web link in the browser. So that's good information to know. Thank you for that. Okay, and next I'm going to talk about some updates that will be implemented for the FY23 version. It's mostly related to the display section, which is looking at checkouts, end caps, and freestanding displays. Basically, we are aligning those three observations to be very much more the same than they were in the previous version. So all of the questions for checkouts and for end caps and for freestanding displays are going to be the same. These are the questions that you see on the screen. And we are now only asking you to look at 3 displays per display type max. So you look at 3 checkouts, 3 end caps, 3 freestanding displays, or up to that many. If there are less, then you observe less. And the way that you pick them, we're going to ask you to find the 3 most prominent displays, and we're still kind of finalizing the wording for the instructions on how you choose those prominent displays, but we'll have some instructions for you to follow. And then also we're not asking you to look at back end caps anymore. We're only looking at front end caps. Those tend to be the most prominent and also most related to prompting buyers, getting more attention from folks using the stores. And we're hoping that this change makes the process quicker. Before we were looking at, all the, tons of the front and back end caps, and it took a long time to get through it all. So hopefully this speeds up the process and makes it more efficient. And then if anybody is interested in helping us to pilot this new version of the questions, please email evaluate.snaped@ucanr.edu to let us know, because we're currently working to make sure the questions are reliable, and that people are answering them the same way. So reach out to us if you'd like to do that.
And this would count as your FY22 SLAQ completion.
Yeah.
So we're not asking you to do 2 different ones.
Yeah. Did I skip a slide? Here we go. Hold on a second. Sorry, I think I'm skipping ahead. Where was the last one? There we go. Okay, so we also have a question. We are considering creating a recognition system for the retail SLAQ. We're currently working on one for the Learn SLAQ, so that's schools and ECE, et cetera. And we know that some of you already have a recognition system that you use and like. So if there are any folks that would like, in addition to what you may already have access to, one specifically for the SLAQ, we're gonna have a poll for that as well. So I'm gonna launch this. I'm gonna have it open for about 30 seconds. I'm gonna keep it open for 5 more seconds. Okay, I'm gonna close the poll now and show the results. And it looks like there is kind of there's several people that would like a recognition system for the SLAQ and some that don't. And Janice, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that if we do create a recognition system, it's not necessarily required to use with your sites, but is an option for creating buy-in and also for giving the store the recognition that it deserves if there's not an alternative recognition program.
Right. Yep, it would be optional. And we would probably use the Shop Healthy Here recognition system or adapt that one, because that's that's one that CDPH has already created and is very much in line with the information that we have on the SLAQ.
Yeah. And before I go forward, I want to just pause to see what questions have come in, or if you all do have some questions. And someone has asked if you have a store that doesn't have a front and back end caps, only left and right, how do you enter that? And for the FY23 version, I would say use the end caps that are we're going to say most prominent, and usually that's the ones that are closest to the register. Usually the registers are on one side of the store, so the end caps that are closest to the register are usually the most prominent, but it'll be a judgment call following the instructions that we provide for that. And Janice, do you have any advice on how to record that in the FY22 SLAQ or FY20 SLAQ?
Right, the one that's currently available.
Yeah.
So I think similarly, we do have some guidance. It's maybe in that definition explanation sheet, but in this situation, you would consider the front end caps the ones closest to like the front of the store or the register. So if that still doesn't make sense or apply to your particular store, you could always connect with us offline and we can try to figure out, which one should we call the front versus back.
And if you have any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself or write in the chat your question.
This is Erica. I have a quick question for San Francisco specifically. And sorry, if this question is better suited for the very end, that's fine. So we haven't done any retail work really for the last 2 years because of COVID. We haven't been in the stores. The healthy retail efforts for the more DPH affiliated or community program that TNDC, I think Janice, you're familiar with, John and their efforts. They also haven't been doing much work in the last 2 years because of COVID. And a number of stores that they were working with, primarily in the Tenderloin for us, as of now, are graduating from the healthy retail program here in San Francisco. So literally over the next few months, like they're on their way out of being affiliated regularly with healthy retail efforts. So in that case, we're just trying to figure out, also with our very, very limited staffing that we have, and in efforts to make things most meaningful, what sites we need to do SLAQs with and not in that circumstance. I could give more information if needed, but trying to just assess who to do SLAQs with.
Yeah, so and this is true for all of the SLAQs, but you only need to do them for the stores that you will be planning on doing PSE work for that fiscal year. So if you know for sure that you won't be doing any like just even starting or planning preparation of PSE strategies in that store this year, then you don't need to do a SLAQ. And you just need to do a SLAQ before you begin starting to make any like observable changes in the store. So if you have stores that are on their way out, and that means you won't be working with them anymore through CFHL funds or resources, then you wouldn't need to do a SLAQ for those. And if you're not sure yet which stores you're working with this year, then I would wait. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. Basically, for the stores that are graduating, we do not need to do SLAQs with them.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Thank you for the question, Erica. I'll pause just to see if anyone else has a question before we move on. Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide then. We have another question, and that is, would you prefer a separate page on the SLAQ website where we put all the retail SLAQs? Currently, they're kind of combined with all the Learn SLAQs, and we want to know if it would be more useful to you to have it all in one place on the website. So let me just get that poll started. And I'm gonna wait for about 30 seconds to answer. I'm gonna close it in about 5 seconds. Okay. All right, it looks like most of you, 60% said yes. A few of you said no, and if you said no, I want to follow up and ask you why not? Is that a fair question, Janice? I just want to know what problems would come up if we put them all into one web page before we decide one way or another, so that we have our bases covered.
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing, why not? I think that would be helpful for us. I guess I would also just want to clarify that you would still access it through that main SLAQ website, and it would just be one of those like sub pages that you can navigate to on the left, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to remember another website.
Thank you, Erica, for that explanation. And Stephanie. Okay, so it just might be redundant if we have this training available.
I guess it would actually invalidate our training today. We did that. That's okay.
Okay. And Nikendra asked a question that for those who don't use the SLAQ, what other tools do you use? I know previously that a lot of folks used the CX3, but CDPH has discontinued support for that tool.
And for LHDs doing retail, you are required to use the retail SLAQ. I think, a few years ago, we didn't have an option to use it for large stores more than 4 checkouts. But now the SLAQ can be used for any size store with a couple of different modifications in there. But I would be curious to know of other, retail tools that you're also using, if that applies to you. Like if any of you are using customer intercept surveys or collecting financial data. Those are some of the things that Christine and I used to do on other healthy retail projects.
And I want to add for the large stores, there are prompts in the SLAQ, in the retail SLAQ that will let you know when you can kind of pre-fill sections for large stores, and you can assume like, oh, they have all the products. So you can, there are certain prompts that you should follow if you're doing a large store. And Erica put in the chat that they use the internal or mile markers that Healthy Retail SF has to work with stores on their interventions. All right, I'm going to move on now. Kayla, did you want to do this slide?
Yeah, but if you don't mind sharing or keeping your screen shared, that'd be great.
Sure.
So just wanted to say a few reminders about upcoming deadlines and opportunities. So on June 23rd at 11 a.m., we're going to be hosting another session of cross-project office hours, and you can register for that on the LHD evaluation landing page. And maybe Janice or Christina can drop that link into the chat. But yeah, so we'll be having cross-project office hours. It's an opportunity for your teams to come and ask questions about all of the different projects. So there's the SLAQs, there's pairs, IOE, adult directed education evaluation. So any of those projects, if you have a question about it, you can join on the 23rd and get those questions answered. We also, during those sessions, will record the questions that are asked and then provide answers. And we upload the question and answer guides from past meetings onto the same evaluation website. So if you want to see what has been asked in the past, it might be helpful for your team just to know, common questions. You might have the same question and it's already been asked. So you can check out those guides again on the LHD evaluation landing page. There's a separate tab for cross-project office hours. And then if you go there, they have the Q&A. Christina, can you forward to the next slide, please? And then we also wanted just to add a friendly reminder that your LHD activity checklists are going to be due at the end of the fiscal year, so September 30th. Janice kind of mentioned what they are and why we use them, and I showed you on the SLAQ website where you can enter those. So just wanted to let you know that that's coming up, because like Janice mentioned, you don't necessarily do them at the same time that you complete your SLAQ. Janice, is there anything else you wanted to add specifically about the LHD activity checklist?
I do actually. Thanks, Kayla. So given COVID, the last few years, it has come up from various local health departments that they don't have anything to report on their LHD activity checklist. Like maybe at the beginning of the year, they plan to start working on some PSE interventions or other CFHL interventions, and then it just, you know, understandably wasn't able to get off the ground. But we do look for, you know, a one-to-one, like if there is a SLAQ submitted, then we look for a LAQ submission. And so if you could go ahead and just like explain in one of the text fields that you weren't able to make a lot of progress, that would still be really helpful for us.
So you just put in, you know, the site information and then leave everything else blank, but the you know, comment in the text box explaining the situation. Okay, thank you. All right, and we have, I think this is the last question, and please feel free to type your answers into the chat. But aside from the materials that we reviewed today, what other materials and resources would you like to see from us? We want to make this, you know, process as easy as possible for you all to be able to complete the retail SLAQ with your sites. So please, if you have ideas on what else you'd like from us, let us know.
And FY23 is the last, you know, well, famous last words, right? But that's what we're expecting to be the last set of revisions, and then it will be final going forward. So we're just wrapping up all of our reliability testing on all the questions right now, and then it'll be finished and out there. So our training materials can also be finalized finally.
Erica asked in the chat about the long-term plans for SLAQ. Can we expect this process to stick around? Janice, do you want to take that?
I don't think I have anything to add to what I just said. Our goal is that they will be, for all of the different SLAQs, they will be final.
And as far as we know, on our end, the plan is to continue using the SLAQs for the foreseeable future. There's no plans to discontinue at the moment. Is that fair to say, Janice?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, similar to all of you, we're also on a 3-year cycle with CDPH and CalFresh Healthy Living funding. So I don't know, but as far as I know, it seems like the IWP process is has really added or embedded assessments, and yeah, I think that's going to be the case moving forward.
Thank you. I'll wait a little bit longer to see if anyone has any ideas for materials that you want us to produce. You can write it in the chat. You can mute yourself. Either way, I'll just wait a few more moments and then move on. Okay, I don't see anything coming in. And now is the time for general questions. So this will, you know, again, please feel free to type in the chat or unmute yourself to ask any questions you might have about presentation, about the retail SLAQ generally. We invite you all to speak or chat.
This is Erica. I have another question.
Go for it.
My question is, you know, the data that's being collected from the SLAQ tool, I guess specifically thinking of healthy retail, how will that be shared with LHDs? Like, how can we as LHDs expect to kind of receive the collective impact back? Because I guess I'm always wondering, like, how can we best support the best, the best data collection and just the process in general? So when can we expect to learn more about like outcomes of what's happening in order to then figure out where to focus efforts a little bit more?
Thank you, Erica. That's a great question. In terms of, I'm going to start the answer and then probably, I think I'm going to ask the others to jump in. But in terms of working with your sites one-on-one and looking at, the impact year over year with your site, you can use the action planning tool. That's a good resource to use. And we're also, I think, in the process of creating, I don't know how to say it. Kayla, you're working on this in this area. Can you provide any information?
Sure. We're working on some reporting templates that your teams can use to look at progress over time. So those will be at the site level. So you would put in, let's say you've done a SLAQ for multiple years, you would be able to put in the scores for each of those years and see how things have changed. That's our goal. And then I think we're also trying to make something at the county level where you can look at change over time across all of your retail sites. That one's a little bit more complicated because we need to have like matched throughout multiple years. So it'd only be for retail sites that you've been in for a while, but that's another tool that we're trying to do and kind of getting aggregated data. So if you're working in 5 retail sites, you could see the average between like 2 years, how things went.
Yeah, and then just to take a few steps back in terms of getting immediate feedback, when you enter your completed SLAQs into Survey 123, there is a score report that you receive automatically for that store that's broken out by these main sections of where people typically work on with healthy retail. They're like the 4 Ps, which I think probably a lot of you have heard of: product placement, pricing. Why am I suddenly blanking on the 4th one? Promotion. So yeah, you'll get that kind of feedback right away. So that's something you can do with your individual stores along with that action planning form that Christina mentioned. And then yes, and then we'll have some report templates for looking at change over time. Does that answer your question, Erica? Or are you wondering at more of a like statewide level?
I think that answers. Just curious, like how we can best utilize the data that comes back. I do think back to like the CX3 days, and they were just more like, not to say SLAQ has like less, but there were definitely all those like supplemental types of things that came along with the CX3. It's like, here's a scorecard, take it to your store. So there's, all sorts of like components and stuff. So I was just trying to like, investigate that with the SLAQ stuff a little bit.
Yeah, I think if you get a chance to look at that score report detail that Kayla pulled up, there's a little bit of like verbiage there that you can use with your stores. And we can definitely look at, partnering with CDPH to maybe build out some more resources. I think this is one of those things where it's like we created the SLAQ, but we're not really on the program side. And so, but we'd love to see this being used and useful for all of our LHDs. So be happy to explore that more with CDPH.
Another thing kind of to piggyback off of that, kind of a outside of the box question. has there ever been any consideration for, because like we did this I guess event stemmed from one of the exchanges that we did, as you know, like she's talking about healthy retail, which is great. But another thing in the evaluation group that kind of emerged was like a POS system type of thing. And that's like a much, much, much larger thing, totally outside of SLAQ, but still it's, you know, evaluation type of outcome thing, component. And so in San Francisco, we are going to be developing like a POS system. And I'm wondering if for, you know, healthy retail area, and I'm wondering if like NPI, or if there's ever been any discussion or interest in being a part of that, or like even wanting to have anything to do with that, because it's a big kind of daunting thing, but just wanted to mention it because it is evaluation and outcome related in a sense.
Yeah, I'm going to take that back to my boss, Gail, and Lauren Whetstone, and see if there's a way for NPI to be involved with that. I think I myself would love to. I've done a lot of POS data evaluation on other healthy retail projects, and have you know, developed methods of like converting like pounds sold to servings of fruits and vegetables, for example, to get to some of those diet outcomes. And I have other materials and things that might be of use.
We only have, I think are we over time now officially?
No, we had an hour and a half.
Okay, great. So then we have plenty of time for questions. Okay, so July asked, is there any current or past information on how to present the data results? I feel like we covered that in this discussion of in the discussion earlier, but July, if there's any follow-up questions you have, please put it in the chat. And
Christina, should I be then looking at the retail SLAQ scoring, the explanation in detail resource?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. And like I said, the scores, the results that you get when you submit the SLAQ, they're all listed at the end. You can use that, take those scores and use the action plan tool to work with your site on, you know, how do you want to, what areas do you want to focus on, what activities do you want to do. So use those resources together to work with your site.
Thank you.
Dina, do you have an example of the Integramat report that gets sent? I think some people haven't completed a SLAQ yet, so maybe.
Yeah, do you want to take some of the other questions while I try to find an example?
We'll answer a simple question. Will we receive the recording of today's session? So we're going to post it on our website. And I don't know if the training team at CDPH plans to email everyone that link as well, but it'll be on the SLAQ website under the trainings tab that I showed you once everything is cleaned up and ready to be shared. And then Nikendra had a question for those using the SLAQ. Do you have any useful tips to share, or would like to share your experience using the SLAQ's example for SOAR assessments or evaluation? Looks like we have a response. I use it to find which areas I have to concentrate my work in with stores. Yeah, it's a great use.
I've almost got the results out.
I also have a question for this group. We've started translating the interview questions, the store manager interview questions, into other languages, and I'm wondering what languages you all would need.
What languages are we translating into currently, Janice?
We have Spanish, and I'm in embarrassed to say that I cannot pronounce this one. It's KHMER. I believe it's a Cambodian language.
Khmer.
Khmer.
Yeah, I say Khmer, but I don't actually know if that's correct.
Mm.
Yeah, so we have Spanish and Khmer so far. Erica, for Chinese, do you know if that's traditional characters or simplified? I mean, I guess it's interview administered, but for your interviewers, which
I would have to inquire with TNDC, but I can certainly get you an answer. But I know that would be a very important and prominent language to consider.
great.
So I have a question for evaluation cross-project office hours. Is it just for SLAQ questions or results? No, evaluation cross-project office hours are for all the different projects that we support LHD teams on. So it can be for SLAQ questions if you have anything related to SLAQs. But if you're also working on pairs reporting and you have questions about that, or you also participate in IOE, or the adult directed evaluation, all of those questions can be brought there. We basically bring the leads from each of the project teams onto this call, and we give you guys an hour of our time, and you can just bring whatever is coming up for you. We do these, we're trying to do them quarterly and at times that are most helpful for your teams because there's deadlines coming up. And so you might have just a quick question. And it's an alternative to emailing us because that's always also an option.
Thank you. Okay, I'm ready to have a copy of STOR's scores. So this is what it looks like in the results section. It's a summary of the scores for product, pricing, placement, promotion, et cetera, like Janice was talking about. There are a couple of, you can see here, there are a couple of spots that are blank. For instance, freestanding displays. And if it's blank, it usually means that there were no freestanding displays recorded. There are stores that don't have any. Same with fountain to-go drinks and prepared foods or meals. Some stores just don't have those. So the scores for those sections will be blank. So when you get the results back, you can see this page. And then if you scroll down to the next page, there's an explanation of all the scoring that we did. It's pretty detailed, so you're gonna have to probably take a minute to sift through it.
And this is what's automatically sent?
Yes. Yes, and so the email address that you enter when you're submitting this is the email address that gets a copy of the results.
They also get a copy of the individual question responses, right?
Yes, that's also, yeah, you have to scroll to get to the results section past all of the responses that you submitted.
So it's nice if you're using the web link because then you have a document that you can reference back.
Great. Are there any questions that we have not gotten to?
I think we hit all of them now.
Is everybody here on our SLAQ listserv? Do you want to link to that?
Yeah, I can put that in the chat. So we have a list. So we have on the LHD landing page, we have a place where you can go and sign up for listservs for all of the projects. So that includes SLAQs, pairs, IOE, and adult ed. And I dropped the link to that in there. So if you aren't already on listservs for the projects that you participate in, it might be helpful. We send out monthly newsletters and urgent updates or reminders about deadlines that are coming up.
The SLAQ listserv doesn't do monthly newsletters, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the pairs does, and so does the IOE and not adult ed. I think adult ed, we are mostly doing like urgent updates related to it.
Yeah, that's like SLAQ.
Yeah.
So we won't be bombarding your inbox.
And if you guys have other, like, it would actually be helpful to know the ways in which you prefer to be communicated with about these types of things. We want to make sure that we're able to reach all the local health departments that are working with retail or working in these other projects. And so we've landed on newsletters, but we know that emails are always a tough one. And we also put things in the LHD bulletin, and I attend the all LHD calls that happen every other month. And at those times, we'll also put reminders. So those are other opportunities to kind of get updates on what we're doing and new resources that we've created for your teams. Thanks, Erica.
I'm going to suggest or propose that we wait another 5 minutes or so for any questions, any lingering thoughts that you guys might have. And then if nothing comes in, we can end a little early.
Do you all have plans for more peer exchanges, or do you have a way to chat with each other?
We do not. So the peer exchange that I think I tried to explain it to you, Janice. The peer exchange that this emerged from was created to try to take a current pulse on healthy retail. And then this, lots of things emerged as far as like SLAQ needs, largely out of a breakout group that was focused in evaluation efforts. So I know that this event was extended to everybody who does healthy retail, but I think a lot of the more pointed things are emerging from the evaluation group. So I don't think we had anything planned beyond this, although we have created like a little internal evaluation group to stay in communication about evaluation themed things. And I think it was you, Janice, you requested to be on that. So we
Yeah,
maybe add you to that. So just like a tighter way to communicate directly with each other, I think, and maybe like share best practices and things. Because I think like retail also, I think the point of this was that retail isn't like a booming area, sort of. So it's a way like to, I think, maximize what we do have. And it's a very unique little area as well. So to be like a little bit more closely tied with each other and share, that was part of the intention as well.
that sounds.
I mean, retail is a booming area, it's sometimes overlooked. It's like, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's in a time of transition too.
Yeah, turn my camera on, I guess. Exist. It's a lot of transition time, and the POS stuff is interesting because we're in a time now where like a lot of counties have various policies passed, and San Francisco, we're at a point where we're seeing our soda tax dollars being pushed back into the community that are going towards a lot of these same efforts. So like, the POS thing can be useful to measure not only our specific interventions, but largely things that sort of supplement our efforts as well.
I'm I haven't worked as much as Janice in the retail sphere. Can you tell me a little bit more about the POS system?
Sure. So we started work on this before. Sorry, was that question for me? I missed the very beginning.
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
feel bad because I don't want to open up a can of worms, but I don't know very
Oh,
much about it at all.
yeah.
So like a high level summary would be great.
We started this work before COVID, and then stopped, as most things did. But those were the intentions of like being able to have a POS system. We started focusing on beverages first. So we created like a master inventory list of products. We went out to lots of stores and actually looked at nutrition labels. And then I think, aligned with vending policies to categorize healthy versus unhealthy and things like that. So we started with beverages. We have this really big inventory list actually done for beverages, and then we were going to move on to snacks. And we were going to work with TNDC here, and the city also funds OEWD here, the Office of Economic Workforce Development. They fund a lot of the retail work as well. They were previously more tied with tobacco work as well, but I mentioned in the thing, there used to be a lot of alignment with, or redundancy and alignment with tobacco funding, but a lot of the tobacco funding has kind of shifted. Yeah, we also have a small business consultant that is partnered with OEWD. So the idea was to work as a group collectively to develop and then implement a POS system where at the end of the day, the ultimate outcome would be that we would be able to see the sales of sugar sweetened beverages versus water versus other beverages at these stores. And then also same idea with snacks. We didn't really get to the snack part yet. We had just started, but that was the idea. And then also recognizing a lot of stores, at least locally, are at different places. So it'd be very complex. Some do have a computerized system that they already use for sales. Some do not and are still manually entering things and using a pencil and paper. So very, very challenging project, I think, to work towards how the development would work and the implementation would work. But we are at the point locally where we're able to, like, we're starting to pick it all up again as we're kind of dusting off COVID, sort of. Hopefully, I don't know. So I hope that was like a good enough overview.
Yeah.
Happy to answer other questions.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I really want to see how everything goes, and it's really cool. That's awesome that you're doing the work.
Yeah, we might also pull in one of our epidemiologists from MCAH, where we are housed, and within our health department, to potentially help with some stats stuff and evaluation stuff. And then I just spoke with Rosanna, who's our new project officer since Andrea's not here any longer. So she had some previous experience that she shared with us, and some resources that I think she's gonna forward to us as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have about 9 minutes left. So if anyone has any burning questions they'd like to share and ask, we'd be happy to answer them.
I have another question for the group. When are you all planning your data collection? And would you be interested in using the pilot version? I guess I shouldn't call it the pilot version, but pilot testing the FY23 version.
So Janice, would this be their data collection for which fiscal year?
It would count for this current fiscal year, FY22. It's just that, if they haven't, I'm assuming, if you're on the call today, then you haven't done your SLAQ data collection yet for this fiscal year. And if you want to try out this new shorter one, it's definitely an option.
I would have to go back and ask my team, but I mean, that's potentially something if I could like show them something about it or ask, that might be something that would be a good option for us. I'm not sure.
Great. So we'll be doing second data collection around August, and we'd love to try the new one. Awesome.
Sorry, I can't remember which LHD that Health Promo Zoom 01 corresponds to. Erin is Santa Clara, is that right? If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. And Stephanie, just to follow up on like something to show. So are you thinking like something that explains the changes to the SLAQ, or what type of information? Okay.
Yeah, just so that if I'm not sure exactly what the differences are.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Eric, I think we may have conducted it for some of your stores. You and Christina can maybe talk more about that offline. So if that's of interest, to use one of the completed ones that we did.
Yeah, I'm just fixing for the new questions. I'm fixing the scoring because it needs to be updated from the previous version. And as soon as I'm done with that, I'll have the results section finished and can send you that. I think I was in contact with Chris, so I'll send them to Chris. And I can, if you want, I can CC you as well.
That would be great. Thank you.
That's the survey 123 version that Christina is talking about. The paper version is ready to go for those of you who are planning to do it on paper.
Yeah.
Should we end 5 minutes early? Does that sound good?
I don't hear any objections.
Happy Mother's Day to everyone.
Thank you so much for putting this on.
Yeah, thank you all for joining.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was very helpful. I think it addressed exactly what emerged
Great.
as
That's
a need. So
Perfect.
it was very helpful.
happy to hear.